Thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Really cool to be back here in Paris at this amazing event. It's growing year after year. It's more and more side events. So it's really cool that you're all here talking with us, hearing us talk as well. Huge news for the Celo ecosystem this weekend and these days. And I think while, of course, the Ethereum community can bring so much to the Celo ecosystem actually also can bring a lot to Ethereum. And this is actually real-world use cases. And this is actually the big topic today we want to talk about. Real-world applications, especially on the continent of Africa. And how what we are building can make a difference on real-world applications. Before I introduce my fellow panelists, very quickly on myself, I'm Markus. I'm working on Celo for 6 years now. Recently, we've spun off from C Labs with Mento Labs. Mento is, like Celo, also Esperanto. And it's a word for mint. Mento is the stability platform on Celo, and there's, for example, the Celo dollar, Celo euro, and Celo real living on Mento. And we're now working on expanding the usability of these stable assets with a dedicated company. But we also want to issue in future many more different currencies so that we can support these real-world use cases in Africa. Today I have with me Chris from Fonbnk. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, thanks.
And I have also Aliu from the Celo Foundation, the ecosystem lead for Africa.
Thank you.
So I jumped ahead on introducing myself, but I want to also give you the opportunity to tell a bit about Fonbnk and what you are doing maybe first. Chris, what are you working on?
Thank you. I'm Chris Duffus. I'm the founder, CEO of Fonbnk, and what we are is a bridge to Web3 targeting mobile-first, cash-based economies. And what makes us unique is that we use prepaid airtime and mobile money as a medium of exchange. So think M-Pesa meets Uniswap. In many of the markets that we target, there are limited opportunity for banks or traditional financial services as we know it in the West, but everybody's got a prepaid mobile phone and has the ability to top it up on every corner. And so we use that type of distribution as our fiat on-ramping, and we can then take this digital asset and then swap it for CUSD in a type of marketplace or exchange DEX on the back end. And so as a result, we can provide on-ramping across these economies with an asset that is more readily available than most traditional financial services are here in the West, or at least relative to the populations that we target. And we now support CUSD on-ramping in leading African economies like Nigeria and Kenya.
Amazing. Hearing CUSD is for me especially great that you're supporting it. So that's really cool. Before we dive into a bit more or some more questions on this, Aliu, can you also introduce what you're doing currently?
Thank you very much. My name is Aliu Musa. I lead the Africa ecosystem at Celo Foundation. I've been with the foundation for 3 years now, leading growth efforts across the continent. Happy to be here.
Amazing. Really cool that you're here. And maybe starting with you. So what are currently the challenges you see for real-world use cases, and what are cool examples for real-world use cases you're currently working on?
Yeah, actually, as far as Africa is concerned, I always say it's like one of the biggest places where Web3 use cases is actually more relevant, because there are a lot of problems that Web3 can easily solve in Africa, especially when it comes to retail use cases, right? So right now, there are quite a number of use cases that are very active in Africa, and one of them is remittances. Remittances in the sense that we have a lot of Africans living in diasporas that are sending remittances home. And the cost of remittances in Africa today is as cheap. I think the cheapest cost of remittance in Africa is about $10. So if you are sending $100 home, you are using $10 to kind of like send that. So with crypto, it's kind of like makes a lot of things easier more because people can now, pay as low as 0.01 USD to send thousands of USD or even millions of USD back home. Apart from that, I think other use cases that are more relevant is ReFi. That is one of the projects currently building on Celo in Nigeria that is actually using waste to actually allow people to get access to health insurance. So the way it works is that people actually pack their plastic waste and then take it to an agent network that is owned by this company. And they actually get an equivalent of that particular plastic waste in health insurance. Some of these use cases also goes to education. They get equivalent of that money going into their children's education. So there are quite a lot of these kind of use cases that are sprung across Africa, but definitely payment and remittances seems to be like the most fragmented thing across Africa. Even intra-Africa transaction is really difficult. Sending money between Nigeria and Ghana is as difficult as sending money between the US and Nigeria. So crypto has actually makes a lot of things more easier, and we have a lot of partners that are solving these problems for us, utilizing CUSD as well. One of it is Bitmama. So right now, one of the problems we have in some of the African countries, Nigeria included, is that you cannot use your bank card outside of Nigeria. So whatever you want to use your bank card for, it has to be in Nigeria. As I am in France now, I cannot use my Nigerian bank card to perform any transactions. But with some of these partners that we already have available in Africa, they are utilizing crypto with MasterCard and Visa card that you can kind of like just fund with your CUSD or any other stable value currencies and just utilize it for payment anywhere around the world.
That's really cool. Remittances is an amazing use case, especially on Celo. Remittances make so much sense. They can be sent to a phone number, they can be fast, they can be relatively cheap, but the difficult part of the remittances value chain in the end are on and off ramps. Chris, what do you see currently as like the big challenges for on and off ramps, especially in Africa?
It's a great question. I would reframe that a little bit in that, when people think about on and off ramps and even crypto remittances, they talk about the last mile. What we're looking to solve usually is the last few inches. And that's where this cash to fiat or fiat to crypto conversion comes in crypto back to fiat conversion comes into play. And it's usually someone that doesn't have access to traditional bank, or there's dollar scarcity at that particular bank so that they can't make the conversion. And we can enable a P2P over the top type solution. And, there are a myriad of issues, but I think the biggest one on continent is it'd be like saying if, the EU is broken up back into the individual countries, or the US was 50 different countries and each had its own regulation and banking and telecom infrastructure, how could you commercially do business? And so as you think about a protocol or a DApp and you want to go to market in a very rich and populous region, none of us are that big or have that much time to develop all those different types of relationships. And so that's where what we're looking to solve is provide a over-the-top type solution or layer that could plug in all the myriad of different localized sort of liquidity solutions into our protocol. But that gives you a flavor, hopefully, of sort of what I see some of the biggest thing is the fragmentation of the continent from a financial services standpoint.
Does, and staying with you and what you're doing at Fonbnk, we've talked about remittances, but do you see other things that can be unlocked with stablecoins for real-world adoption, for end users using this technology, Celo technology, Mento assets in their day-to-day life?
I mean, considering this is going to sound, this is not necessarily new, but you know, with the Naira float, people have seen the value relative to the dollar and many Western currencies depreciate by tens of percentage points in the last couple of weeks, right? So there's the safety aspect of stable coins. It's actually, if you talk to any number of the different crypto platforms on continent, stables is probably about 80% of their product mix that they might sell relative to other tokens like Bitcoin or and altcoins. So that's probably the number one killer app. And then it's trade, right? Again, when you think about like, hey, we're 54 different countries that try to trade with the whole entire world, well, they don't necessarily want to take Naira or shilling or Kenyan shilling or Ugandan shilling or rand. They might want to settle in dollars or euros, pounds, or yuan, right? And so having stables that allow not just sort of the last few inch on ramping, but sort of cross currency transfers, I think is a big opportunity, which is way more efficient on chain than it is in the real world.
Cool. We have remittances, we have currency transfers, we have mobile payments, and on and off ramps are a challenge to unlock these use cases. But what can we do to drive adoption? What is Celo Foundation, for example, doing to drive adoption across Africa? Can we double down on this a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, to actually drive adoption, it's for Africa, definitely it's about retail. And if you're talking about retail, definitely you have to look at some of the retail use cases, like I've mentioned, like payments, you know, getting the last people, like people that doesn't actually have, you know, access to bank accounts, people that doesn't have access to smartphones, right? Getting them to be able to use crypto without even knowing that they are using crypto. I mean, that's like the real deal, right? So I think some of the things we are currently doing right now is to kind of like work with different partners that are enabling these use cases, these opportunities. For example, Kotani Pay in Kenya, I actually utilize in this, with USSD code, you can actually access, you know, your wallet and perform any transaction. So with these kind of partners, you are enabling people that doesn't have access to, you know, bank accounts or people that doesn't have access to smartphones to actually also participate in the crypto economy, right? So, and as much as we are talking about, you know, enabling use cases, we also need to understand that we need a lot of education because many people really need to understand, you know, a lot of things about crypto without even knowing that they are, you know, doing crypto, right? So we have utilized, you know, the Celo Africa DAO. Recently, we got a proposal about the Celo Africa DAO passed by the Celo Foundation, and since then, we have been utilizing that DAO to actually educate people across Africa, across different universities, across, you know, different communities on, you know, the use cases and opportunities in crypto, right? So I think with this kind of thing, it's kind of like it will just make things more easier because the right way for adoption is for people to use crypto without knowing they are using crypto, and that's like the best user experience that anyone can actually have, and that's, I believe, that the kind of opportunity that we are flowing with some of the partnership that we have in the pipeline coming up, I feel like we are going to unlock a lot of, you know, millions of users across Africa.
Cool. Yeah, I really like this development, seeing all these local DAOs coming up in the Celo ecosystem in Africa and Europe and other places. So I think this is really, really cool to then have local people, local DAOs on the ground solving these local problems as well. What is Fonbnk's strategy to improve adoption? Is it also focusing on retail, or what is your strategy?
Definitely takes a retail flavor, but because we have telco roots and incentives baked into our product stack, we actually use that off-ramp where we can convert crypto into prepaid airtime credits. And we deployed this strategy. It worked so well, we actually drove nearly 300,000 wallets across the continent last year with activity in all the leading economies. And it was something that we abstracted the wallet in many respects for many of the retail users. And once they saw this value, they could quickly click a button. It was linked to their phone number, and they saw value show up in their phone. And that was like a big aha for many users. And that's what drove people to sort of come back and complete any number of different processes. And we've now provided this as a service to partners, as we are probably the largest non-custodial sort of reseller of prepaid airtime on continent. So if you have a crypto project and you want to off-ramp into prepaid airtime, we have a solution for you that is tested to drive adoption across the African region.
And maybe since we are already running out of time, one more question to both of you. As we at Mento Labs are focusing on building stable assets for every country in the world, and we now talked about Africa as a whole, what are countries where we have a need for local currency? What are countries where you currently see a lot of adoption, a lot of growth? What are the countries that are interesting currently for both of you?
I definitely think Nigeria, now that they've free floated the Naira again, and it's a key partner on the continent and globally for trade. And so there's going to be a lot of people that are looking to hedge their Naira positions relative to dollars, euros, pounds, as well as many local currencies. Obviously, the Kenyan shilling is another one, Rand. So and then obviously there's Francophone Africa as well, with any number of different currencies. So, but I definitely would start with the Naira as an anchor. You're going to get a lot of partners with that.
Yeah, I think I'll go with him as well. I just wanted him to go first, right? I don't. Yeah. Just as he mentioned, with the recent floating of Naira, the Naira actually depreciated by over 30% against USD in the last 2-3 weeks, right? So it just shows the real value or true value of Naira now. And with that, it simply means that we now have more investors having confidence, because now you can know that you won't lose any of your values if you go into the Nigerian market and putting your money there. And all over Africa, Nigeria actually has the biggest volumes in terms of crypto adoptions and everything, right? So of course, it's going to be Nigeria, and I think Nigeria and Kenya would kind of like be my go-to when it comes to choosing two.
Amazing. We all took notes, so we all focus on these countries. 20 minutes always go by super quick. The three of us are here, I think, all week, and also will be more often here at the place. We're always happy to talk about local adoption, local real-world use cases, stable coins, and obviously also Celo. So feel free to come by, chat with us. Thanks a lot. I could go on chatting for hours with you, but yeah, 20 minutes go quick. Thanks, everybody.